In this video, we will see how we can write a C program to calculate the factorial of a number entered by the user. So now the question is how we can find the factorial of a number. For example, let us say the user is going to enter the number 6. Now the factorial of 6 is denoted by like this, and it is actually equal to 6 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. Similarly, if you have to find the factorial of number 3, then it will be 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. For the number 0, 0 factorial is equal to 1 and 1 factorial is actually equal to 1. Now one thing that we can see here is this number will become a huge number for a number like 15 or 20. So that is the one thing that you have to keep in mind. Now let us see how we can write a C program to calculate the factorial of a number. So here what I have done is I have written the main function, and then I have created a variable called as number, initialized it to 0, and then I am asking the user to enter the number to find the factorial, and then I'm reading that and storing in this number variable. The next thing that we're going to do here is we will declare a variable for storing the factorial value that we are going to calculate. Now here I'm going to go with unsigned long integer, and I will call this as factorial, and I will store a value of 1. Now here this unsigned long will by default be an integer, so we can ignore that. So now what we have to do is we have to calculate the factorial and we have to display that. So as I said before, depending on the number, we have to multiply the numbers starting from 1 up to that number. For that we can use a loop, and in this example we will use a for loop. So here we will have a variable for this loop counter, and I will call it as I, and initially I will store a value of 1 in this, and then the condition will be how long we want to run this. It will depend on the number that the user has entered, so it will be I less than or equal to number, and then with every iteration what we want to do, we want to increment the value of I. So here what we want to do, we want to multiply the value present in this factorial variable with the value that this I variable have in every iteration. So it will be factorial multiplied by I. And then what we want to do is we want to store this result back in this factorial variable. So it will be factorial equal to factorial multiplied by I. We can write this in a shorter form, which will look something like this. Factorial multiply equal to I. So this is same as factorial equal to factorial multiplied by I. So if the user is going to enter, let us say the number 3, then 3 factorial will be equal to 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. In order to compute that, what we are doing is with every iteration of this for loop, we are multiplying the value present in this factorial variable by the value of this I, and then we are storing that back in this factorial variable. So for the first iteration, it will be 1. Factorial is containing 1, so 1 multiplied by 1, which is equal to 1, and that is stored in this factorial. For the second iteration, I will contain 2, and now factorial is containing 1 multiplied by 2, which is equal to 2, and that is stored in this factorial. For the next iteration, I will contain 3, and it will be 3 multiplied by 2, which is already present in this factorial, which is equal to 6. And after that, if the user has entered the number as 3, the loop will stop and we will have the factorial value in this factorial variable. So after this here, outside the for loop, we can have the printf statement, and we can display %d factorial symbol equal to %llu. That's because the factorial variable is of type unsigned long integer. And here we will provide the values. First one is the number, and the second one is the value present in this factorial variable. So now if I save this program and if I run this, it will say enter a number to find the factorial. I will enter, let us say 3. It will say 3 factorial equal to 6. I will run it one more time, and this time I will enter 0, and it will say 0 factorial equal to 1. I will run it one more time, and this time I will enter 1, and it will display 1 factorial equal to 1. Now the next thing that we're going to talk about here, this loop counter is starting from 1, and inside this loop we are multiplying the factorial variable's value by 1 when this I is containing 1. That is actually not needed because multiplying by 1 will not change the value. So what we can do is we can start from 2 here. In that way we can reduce this calculation. Now the next thing is this factorial value can become a huge number for the small inputs like 21 or 22. I think this unsigned long can contain the factorial of a number up to 20. I'm not really sure, but I think it is somewhere around there. So if the user is going to enter a number which is beyond that, let us say 30 or something, the factorial value will be so large and we can't store that in this unsigned long variable that we have in this example. So that is one thing that you have to understand. Now here, what we can do is we can have a check. For example, we can check the value entered by the user, which is present in this number variable, if it is less than 0, or if the number entered by the user is greater than 20, then what we can do is we can display a message and terminate the program and do not calculate this factorial. So here in this case, I'm going to say printf number needs to be between 0 and 20. Okay, something like this. And after that, what we want to do is we want to return 0. We don't want to go to this for loop. Now, if I save and run this program, and if I enter a number, let us say -7, it says number needs to be between 0 and 20 and the program terminates. Similarly, if I run it one more time and if I enter a number, something like 50, it will say number needs to be between 0 and 20. So this is it for this particular video. If you like it, then hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the dislike button. If you have anything to say, write that in the comment box. For more tutorials, subscribe to the channel.